Premier League's unrivaled global appeal has seen sold-out stadiums across the world this summer, with fans spread across various continents getting to see their heroes in real life. After 2 years of COVID restrictions, most clubs in the English top flight chose to play matches overseas on money-spinning tours, while some opted for more low-key training camps abroad. But after calls for sport to use the pandemic as a chance to reset around its role in climate impact, the return to vast amounts of plane travel has raised questions on the cost to the environment. As of now, the worst offenders for this type of behaviour are Aston Villa at first, Leeds United, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City, Everton and Nottingham Forest, making up the top 10. The worst producer, of course, being Aston Villa. Their Australian tour included fixtures against Leeds United, Brisbane Roar and Manchester United, while Steven Gerrard's side also flew to France to play Rennes today. In total, Villa has emitted 87.63 metric tonnes of carbon dioxide, equating to 2,921 kilograms per passenger from 5 flights this summer, with the longest journey from the UK to Brisbane. Villa's total squad carbon emissions figure is the equivalent of driving from London to Manchester 790 times, or one person flying from London to LA, Los Angeles 136 times, or 17 times the average UK citizen's annual emissions pre-pandemic. Leeds, who travelled to Australia to play Brisbane Roar, Villa and Crystal Palace, were second highest. Their tour resulted in the Yorkshire club emitting 82.08 metric tonnes over 4 flights, which is the equivalent of 15.8 times the average UK citizen's annual emissions. Forest Green Rovers owner Dale Vince told the BBC that his League One club had an annual footprint of just 70 tonnes last year, meaning it would take them almost a decade to generate the equivalent total emissions of the Premier League's clubs' pre-season tours. Some clubs appearing at the bottom of our table, such as Brighton and Bournemouth, flew to Europe for training camps and low-key friendlies. Brighton's Chief Operating Officer Paul McMullen told BBC Sport that sustainability was not a major consideration in their pre-season plans, but added the club was in the very early stages of developing a strategy to be a sustainable business. Mullen told BBC Sport that many clubs will have overseas tours built into commercial agreements designed to further extend the brand in global markets. He said, "I think there's an expectation to be a good citizen, to be a leader in this and show good practice where we can, but at the same time recognising our business does also pose certain challenges. We realise it's a collective responsibility. The Premier League is developing its own sustainability strategy, and I suspect from that will come a strategy whereby clubs entering the Premier League have certain minimum commitments that they have to adhere as part of that obligation. I think the football is always going to be the driving force in terms of the business, and we have to realise that and the environment that we're operating in, but I think we can align and integrate improving our sustainability and green credentials throughout that." BBC Sport contacted several clubs for comment as they plan and deliver their own pre-season tours rather than the Premier League. The league, which has signed up to the UN Sports for Climate Action framework, has a sustainable strategy which includes sharing best practices with its clubs. Flying to distant countries for pre-season friendly matches surely isn't about preparation for the upcoming season, but is about extending the reach of the brand and increasing the fan base and hence revenue in these countries. It is interesting that just 6 clubs made up 2/3 of the total CO2 emissions. 2 of these clubs were tied as equals top of the Sports Positive Sustainability League in 2021, and so recognised for the good work they are doing at their own venues. Air travel is often demonised, its impacts are significant, and we as a society should fly less. It is more complex than simply condemning all flying, but clubs should understand that the credibility of their sustainability claims will be judged on the most visible behaviours and actions. Football in particular has significant influence over which behaviours are accepted and which are not. Ultimately, the decision to undertake a tour in a distant country should comply with vision and values of the club itself, and whether as the impacts of the climate and ecological emergency continue to increase, it fits with the attitudes and expectations of the public and the club's own fans. The Climate Change Committee, the UK government's advisor on the issue, has called for an urgent plan to reduce the amount of flights. Manchester United, another of the clubs with the highest emissions this summer, said it recognises the impact of international travel on climate change and had offset its carbon emissions by investing in a reforestation project in Western Australia. Carbon offsetting has its critics because it doesn't help reduce emissions, while the reforestation project United are investing in becomes more effectively only when the trees reach maturity. The spokesperson acknowledged to BBC Sport that you could argue that all travel is avoidable, but added pre-season tours provide pivotal preparation time for players and management ahead of a new season. They added, in addition, they are important commercial opportunities, not just for Manchester United, but the wider appeal of English football. This is why, for the first time for a pre-season tour since the start of the pandemic, we've offset the carbon emission generated by air travel. We understand that this does not have an instant impact on the environment, but we are committed to taking necessary steps to lessen our carbon footprint. We also believe if we continue to promote this work, we can educate others and help protect our planet. Premier League clubs lost a total of £1 billion in revenue during the 2019-2020 season, and across Europe's top flight clubs, losses for the 2 years impacted by COVID between 2019 and 2021 were put at €7 billion by UEFA President Alexander Ceferin. These losses were from empty stadiums, a reshaped calendar, TV debates, and commercial and sponsorship reductions. In addition, supporters who may not be able to travel to England to see their clubs in action had the opportunity to attend matches. The United spokesperson added, "Manchester United are a globally supported football team, and while providing the opportunity for our millions of fans worldwide to see the team in person, we also recognise the need to do this responsibly." These BBC Sport calculations were likely to be a very cautious underestimation of the actual figures. They have not factored in the unknown quantities of luggage or probable extra staff on the large-scale tours. They've also assumed economic class on commercial planes as a base level, whereas Premier League's clubs may have flown business class, which can increase emissions by a factor of around 2.75, first class, which can increase emissions by a factor of around 7.4, via private jet, which multiplies emissions and generates additional flights compared to existing commercial airline routes. In terms of how sustainable Premier League clubs claim to be, Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool were the joint top clubs in the 2021 Green League, a table measuring the sustainability of all 20 top flight sides. Tottenham players travelled to domestic matches on coaches powered by biofuel, reducing squad coach travel emissions by more than 80%, and Liverpool have committed to decarbonising fuel through use of sustainable aviation fuel in the future, which would also reduce emissions by 80%. Brentford also announced last November they would keep the same home shirt for 2 seasons, saving money and helping the environment.